Hello, and welcome to the Dreaded 30s podcast, where we share stories about our past, present, and future so you can feel a little bit better about yourself. The more I exist, the more appealing asexuality sounds.
And I'm bisexual. Buy me something. I get sexual. I'm Gavin.
I'm Justin.
Welcome to episode 6 of our podcast. Thanks for coming. Hi.
Yes, thank you.
Hi.
Hey. Hi. We've been sitting here talking for like 20 minutes, and we're going to pretend like this is our first time talking to each other.
Yeah. This is our first time. Actually, we haven't talked much this last week. We've both been busy.
No, the second we were done recording that podcast, we're like, leave me alone.
I'll talk to you in 7 days and not before.
No. But it has been a minute for sure, huh?
It has. Well, happy Monday. Still Monday. Yeah. Let's just jump right in. Justin, what are you dreading? What have you dreaded this week?
Well, clearly it's been a little bit of a hectic one, if you and I haven't even spoke to each other.
Yeah.
It was just pretty busy. And I think the thing that I'm dreading the most right now is I recently applied for a job. And it's a pretty good job from like a benefit perspective. It might be a little bit boring from a job description, but it's a great job. It would do a lot for me. Like, maybe not career-wise, but just life-wise. So we'll see how it all plays out. Fingers crossed.
Would you stay remote or have to go into an office?
It's looking like this company is doing about 60-40. And then on top of this whole Delta variant, they're also mandating that you have to wear a mask when you're in the office. So it's like, just feels like it defeats the purpose.
Yeah, it's like a little like redundant. Like you're aware of the virus, but you're still making them come in. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. My office is pretty much like it's remote, but they want us to come in still for like meetings and stuff. My office never wore masks to begin with.
Oh Lord!
But there's like 8 or 9 of us, and like it's like if one of us has it, it's gonna spread regardless of us wearing a mask. So
yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of what's cool about smaller companies, though, is like, well, it's twofold of like, if one person gets it, everyone probably got it, but at least like you and your work bubble knows, and you can like plan appropriately or just quarantine together in the office. Doesn't that sound so fun?
Yeah, I mean, luckily last year when I did have COVID at the office, no one else got it at the office when I had it, so that was a blessing. I have to like feel bad about making someone else sick, so.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, for those that aren't aware somehow, Gavin celebrated a birthday, the big 3-0. So I think it's kind of obvious what we're going to talk about, what you've been dreading. So just lead the way. Tell us about your birthday. Tell us about what happened.
Yeah, so honestly, just hangovers. Oh my gosh. Saturday, day after I had the big celebration stuff, I was dying. Yeah, for festivities, we Friday night went to Hamburger Mary's. For those unfamiliar, it's a typically gay-owned restaurant that's also a bar. And then in the evenings, most evenings, they have like drag shows, bingo nights, karaoke nights. And that night was called Dining with the Divas. So it's like a bunch of different select drag queens that come out, perform, and dance and sing while you're eating food and drinking. Yeah, it was really fun. I was a little frustrated because we booked a 12 top for all of us, but they actually separated us among 3 tables, like 4-4-4. And I was like, honey.
No, that's dumb.
Yeah, I was pretty mad about that. I tried to complain, but they were like, oh, the other ones they have some bridal parties coming in. I'm like, girl, this is my safe space.
Yeah, like, those are straights. Go away.
I love my straights, but also I was like, oh, like, can we sit together though? Like, this is my birthday. And they were like, no, sorry. Right. I was like, well, it's frustrating because like we booked like weeks ago, and then we also were the first ones there, but they still wouldn't seat us in those sections. And I was like, whatever.
Well, yeah, that would make me kind of sour.
Yeah, a little bitter, but it was fine. The drinks were coming. My dad was like, everyone get more drinks, kept ordering more rounds for everyone. So we were all getting like toasted before our food even came. Toasted is the right term, right? Is that what the kids say? Or what do they say these days?
Yeah, that's a word I've heard.
Yeah, I was getting very intoxicated. And then for a shot, they made everyone who celebrated something twerk. So we had to twerk for a shot, and that's probably my dad's first time seeing me twerk.
You had to twerk in front of your parents.
Yeah, and it was like, I think my dad was just like jaw drop, like, oh no.
Okay, but the big question, and I just realized this, did your dad twerk for a shot?
No, but he did tip some of the queens. He was tipping. Him and my mom have gone to a bunch of drag shows without me. I've never been with them before because they just prefer to go without me, I guess. And I'm like, oh, have fun. I mean, they have gay friends. So they just go out with them.
Right. That's still funny.
Yeah. After that, they actually came to Missy B's afterwards with like a bunch of the friends, and I've never seen my dad at Missy B's before. And those who don't know, it's kind of like the main gay bar in Kansas City. It's tons of gay shenanigans, drag queens, dirty dancing. Like it's a hot mess.
It's an experience. I remember going there in Kansas City and like being very drunk many a times.
Yeah, they've redone it now. Now it's all like nice marble, like very clean. It's not grungy anymore. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
I kind of like the grunge to it.
Oh, I love the grunge. It was this like characteristic, like grungy city vibe. Like that was like where we went to like get grungy and messy.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, that was my my night. Very hungover Saturday. It felt horrible, and then come Sunday, I was still pretty much hungover. Yeah, it was good. That was pretty embarrassing though. Yeah, help me out here. What was one of yours? Make me feel better.
Yeah, embarrassing things in front of parents, right? Like, I feel like I did a really good job at avoiding that just by like staying the frick away from my parents more often than not. But there is this situation that will be forever ingrained in my brain. A lot of 90s families had camcorders, right?
Oh yeah.
We would record, family outings or get-togethers. In my family's case, we would do baby showers and weddings. And at the time, I was an aspiring boy band member that loved NSYNC, loved Backstreet Boys. So I would constantly sing and constantly dance. And I decided to record myself on the camcorder.
Yes.
And let me tell you, I can't dance today. I couldn't dance then. It's cringe. It's really bad. It's basically me just doing just shuffling my feet the entire time. That's all it is. So there comes a time where my family puts up something on the TV in front of a bunch of family members, and they're like, oh, let's watch over this wedding or something. And it's, what you're supposed to be watching. And then all of a sudden it instantly cuts to me dancing to NSYNC in the living room. And everyone is confused, and I'm just ready to disappear from this planet. It was cringe.
They should have known then. They should have known then. Like that was it.
I feel like if I had better dance moves, maybe it would have been a bit more revealing. But I'm telling you, it was like a tree, just like I can't even explain.
So they were like, he is straight for sure. Like we're good.
They're like, he got no dance moves. He's clearly straight.
That's beautiful.
It's bad. It's so bad.
You just brought back a memory of something I did as a child. Mentioning camcorders, you totally just brought this memory out of the depths of my mind.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so mine wasn't recording over anything, but I was like the little techie kid where I was like always trying to record stuff and be sneaky about it. Well, one day I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to record Mother effing Santa Claus. I'm going to sneak my camcorder beneath like a little glass TV stand thing. And I put it up there. I went to bed, turned it on, had 6 hours of recordings. I went to sleep. Next morning, I got up early and watched it. And I saw my parents putting the presents down. I never cried so much in my life.
Oh, no.
And they came down and saw me holding the camcorder, and they were like, are you effing serious?
That is so sad.
And then they were like, we're working for Santa. He was helping us. I was like, don't lie to me. I know the truth.
That's it's so cute, but it's also so sad. Like my parents telling me about Santa Claus was just like, yeah, he's not real. Oh, should I not say that?
Oh God, we've ruined it.
Hopefully there's no one under the age of 18 watching this, so I think we're good. But it was just like, what are you talking about? No, he's real. And they're like, no, seriously, he's not real. Like, that's mom's handwriting. And I'm like, oh yeah, it is. And that was kind of it. Oh, so I feel like people have much better stories than me in regards to Santa's discovery or lack thereof.
I was traumatized. I was like, you eating my cookies? Those are for Santa.
Did they try and give you any sort of excuse? Like, oh no, he just dropped them off and we had to put them up for him.
They tried at first. They're like, no, we're just Santa's helpers. We're helping him get them organized. And I'm like, I saw you come from the other bedroom. I know where they came from.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you poor young self.
Yeah, I mean, I got over it quick. And my sister was like, you just now realized? I was like, she was like, so she's 4 years older. So of course she knew. But yeah, childhood,
man, it's a rough one.
I'm telling my kid from day one, be like, you're Santa Claus, it's me, you're welcome.
I wouldn't be surprised if I had that same approach, actually. I mean, there's a really good chance that I won't have children because look at me, I'm a gay man. I mean, we know some people that have kids. There's a lot of people that have kids, but speaking of kids, I don't know if you saw this, but breaking news came out that Matt Damon has retired from saying the F word.
Yes.
CNN released an article explaining how Matt's daughter left the dinner table after Damon said faggot, writing a long treatise on how that word is dangerous. Matt then announced he's retiring the F slur. Matt, where have you been?
Honestly.
Where have you been?
His whole life
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, he does entertainment for a living. You're around LGBTQIA+ of every facet of what you do.
Ugh. I mean, let's just start this topic by getting our opinions or our perspective.
Sure. Yeah.
What are you thinking of the F word, this F slur he speaks of?
So personally, I've had my own experiences. We'll cover those in a little bit of how I've had, the word faggot used against me. And I've been terrorized in my younger days to my college days. And I have some pretty terrible memories of it. And now I don't hear it as much because people, I think, they're more aware of the implications of that word and how it's very derogatory. I don't necessarily like the word. I do find myself sometimes using it among like my other queer friends, like as like a joke or something just conversational. I don't try to say it around other straight people because I don't want them to feel enabled or empowered to say it themselves because I don't like that. What are your thoughts? That's
a really good point. And that's not something that I really thought of like, I think naturally, like I'll say it around close friend groups, but like you said, it's always in jokes. But what you mentioned about not saying it around straight people, I didn't even think of like if that's a word you're saying around people, they could have that perspective of like, oh, well, they're saying it, so it must be okay to say this. And then the second that it comes out of their mouth, it's like, what do you think you're doing? And so I think my opinion on it is very much like it's not a word for straight people to say. And I think what frustrates me about this Matt Damon situation and a lot of people is they'll defend the word and be like, oh, well, it used to mean something different or it means this somewhere else. And it's like, but here in 2021, it's in the dictionary as being a derogatory term. Like this is what society has accepted this word to be. Respect that. Like, don't give excuse. And like people that give excuse, I have no respect for. It's frustrating. Yeah, and I actually did some research on like what the history of the word was. Have you ever heard the term faggot gatherer before? No. It sounds kind of crazy, but that's what women in the 1700s were called who gathered sticks. A faggot was a gathering of sticks back then for a short time. But then over time, that word became used to degrade people as like, oh, you're just a woman gathering sticks. And that's what the word started to become more derogatory. And fast forward to the 1800s, 1900s, the UK English schoolboys basically took up the word and started using the word fag as a way to explain other boys who would do typically sexual favors for other boys. And since then, it became a very derogatory term used today, and it's often used today in music or by people who probably shouldn't be using the word. And that's the history of it. It's kind of cool. Yeah, that's actually interesting to know because it always seems to kind of stem from this like kind of derogatory reference or like considering a group of people less. And so for that to, translate in today's era of considering homosexuals to be less of a person is like not cool. Simply put.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's other words, for example, that you should be aware of not to use. And it reminds me of this time when I was in Texas for my short stint, and I was in a car with some friends, and there were two white, cis males, straight, and they were singing a rap song that was on the radio, and not radio, it was like an MP3 of some kind, and they used the N-word when it came up. And I had to stop them. I said, guys, stop the song. We're going to have a conversation about this. And they're like, what do you mean? It's in the song. It's fine. And I had to remind them that no, just because in the music does not mean it was made for you. That song is not intended for you to say those words. You can enjoy it and appreciate it, but you're not welcome to use that word. I was like, would you use the word faggot around me? Would you say it to my face? And they were like, well, no, of course not. I was like, then would you use that word to our, POC that work with us? Would you say it to their face? And they're like, well, no, of course not. And I was like, then why do you feel like it's okay to use it in the car when they're not here?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy that I knew that from the start. When it came to like, just because it's in songs doesn't mean it's acceptable to say.
Yeah.
Like I've been really fortunate to have a lot of friends of like all races and ethnicities and backgrounds in school. And like my school, if people know me personally and where I went to school, like it's 99% white. Like it's not a good place to like learn about the world and what there is to offer. And so there was, plenty of people that thought it was just okay because it's in a song. And boy, were my friends pretty pissed off about that. They weren't having anything to do with that. And yeah, I think that translates into the F word as well, of like, just because a comedian makes a joke about it, or just because you hear it in a song, like a Lil Nas X song nowadays probably, doesn't mean that you can drop the F slur on us. Please don't.
Yeah, please don't. Unless that's your part of the community that's been, oppressed by it, you don't get to use the word. It goes for a lot of words, I think, where it's used as a word of oppression. You don't have entitlement to use that word unless you've been impressed by the word.
Yeah, and I think my perspective on it might be a little bit different, but I know that there's others out there of like, faggot has never been used on me, or it's never been like, I've never seen it as a negative thing. And I think a lot of people haven't had that same instance, like, because like a lot of people use the word to instill fear, or like to make someone feel like less of a person, but that has never been the word for me. I feel like the first time that I genuinely heard the word was from a drag queen, and it was seen from like such a positive perspective. And I was like, okay, like I can get behind this word. Like I saw it more of like an empowering and kind of like a rebellious word than anything else. So when someone says it to me, it doesn't hit me like I feel like it hits other people.
Yeah, I think I'm on the other side of the spectrum where I'll just get my most memorable story, and I won't use his real name, but we'll call him Jack. Jack and I were dating at Mizzou, MU, which is the state college for Missouri, for those who don't know. And it's a very mix of city people and people from north and southern Missouri who have never met a gay person in their life. So one day we're walking, it's like maybe 10 o'clock in the evening, and we're walking home from a friend's house, holding hands on campus, like past the library. And we're like, we're just doing our thing, going back home. And this truck drives by, and it stops as it goes like about 50 feet past us and starts to like turn around and kind of come back around us again. And then they yell the word faggot at us, and they drive by pretty quick. And they stop again, turn around again. This time they speed by yelling, stupid faggots again, and they throw beer bottles at us. So we're like dodging beer bottles that are shattering on the ground while they're yelling more slurs at us. And at that point, we're trying to like, get away from the street because we're like, okay, they're obviously drunk and aggressive, and we need to distance ourselves. Because back then I was a very small dude, and my boyfriend was very small as well. Like we could easily be overpowered and harmed.
Right.
So that was one experience where I was like, damn. It's dangerous.
That gives me so much anger inside. Like it's so frustrating. Like, I think just my overall thought of it is like, why are people such shitbags? Like, I've always had this theory, and I'm totally going off topic, but I've always had this theory that like a lot of the reason why people are hateful is more out of fear or lack of knowledge. Like, a lot of these people probably haven't been exposed to homosexuals or haven't been exposed to POC. And so they just act like shitbags. That's all I could think towards these people instead of like being empathetic or supportive or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a good other segue also when you say that it's also POC lack of exposure for them. Because when one thing that happened was we had a early meeting for the LGBTQ Center, which I went to because I was part of it on the morning stuff. As we walked in, we saw that below our center, so we're on the second floor. The first floor was the African American group gathering center. Someone had broken in there during the night and stuck up these strings with cotton balls on them throughout the whole area. Like, I'm talking hundreds. And of course they were all there. They were very upset by that. They were breaking down. And so we all kind of came down there. We canceled our meeting. We spent the next 2 hours pulling these things down and trying to find any kind of camera footage of who was there. Right. It was really upsetting. It was a big article that happened. It was probably one of the most, disappointing things to see, and very upsetting.
It's, oh my God. Why did we go on this tangent? Because now I'm just gonna get so angry.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason why people should feel like this is appropriate. Like there's no justification ever for something like this. And to see it happen and people think that this is cool to do. The word shitbag comes back in my head. This one's going to be explicit. Sorry.
Oh yeah. It's marked.
It's already marked.
Yeah. It's sad.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I haven't encountered anything like that either. I went to school in Southeast Ohio. Initially went to college in Southeast Ohio. Let's clarify a little bit. And it's a lot of people that haven't been exposed to a lot of things other than meth. Hard stop. But yeah, I was playing soccer for the team, and they would just use homophobic slurs or racial slurs left and right, and just thought it was okay, and that was our team culture. Was that's how we spoke to each other, and it just it made me so uncomfortable because that's something that I don't want to partake in, and it's also because I'm part of the community that they're talking trash about. And any sport, organized sport, is really difficult because there's team bonding. When you're going on trips, you have to sleep together. When you're post games or post practice, you're in locker room showers being naked, and for people to still continue to use those slurs when you're in a setting like that and you're a closeted gay man, it was so hard to exist in that environment. It was so uncomfortable, and it was the reason why I left the second the season was over. The second we lost that last game of the tournament, I was gone. I was back home.
Yeah, there's only so much you can take from all of that kind of negative exposure to the worst of the straight community.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to what you said of I'm outnumbered, basically. I'm not strong enough to take these people on. I can't say something because, like we talked about in an earlier podcast, I lose my scholarship, lost my spot on the team, and I have 20 plus people that are probably going to kick my ass. So you feel incredibly helpless in that moment.
Yeah. And it sucks because that's face to face as well. It's even, we experience those things online all the time on video games and interactions with e-communities, but in person, it's much harder to confront it sometimes because it's real people with their real opinions, and that's hard to deal with sometimes.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel it's more prevalent in the digital era because of what you said of people just being able to hide behind a screen. And I feel a lot of times people's true colors show when they feel they're anonymous or they're protected by a screen in some way. And you and I are avid League of Legends players, and the community has gotten incredibly toxic.
Oh yeah.
But on top of that, people just think it's okay to say homophobic slurs or racial slurs like it's nothing.
Yeah, and it's not a new thing, honestly. Back in the days of Counter-Strike and Team Fortress 2 and Warcraft, like those slurs, I would say were used, but not as prevalent as today. I mean, look at Call of Duty. When I get on Warzone, it's just slurs left and right. Like, I can't play with random match people because they just yell stuff at me. And I'm like, I don't even want to get good at this game because this Battlefield is just going to make me depressed.
I recently watched like this podcast segment of a personal friend. His name is Peter Lovins, and he did a part on this podcast called Hockey Pride. He's a lawyer for the Columbus Blue Jackets, like incredible representation within the community. But he mentioned in this podcast about how he feels like we're kind of hoping and holding on to future generations to kind of make LGBTQI more accepting, and not as, just not as difficult to be a gay or whatever person in the world. But then to hear the flip side of people on Warzone, which is probably a bunch of 13, 14, 15-year-olds that just think it's completely okay to act this way. It's like you get this glimmer of hope and then you experience something online and it's like, oh, we're screwed. It's going to take more than generations to come.
Oh yeah, I'm holding on to that one metric I saw that said next 50 to 100 years, the average person is going to be a mixed race of multiple. And eventually we're going to start looking a lot more similar, and people are going to run out of excuses to be discriminating as much. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm sad we're not going to be here for it, but,
Yeah.
Excited for life to change and people to grow up.
We can only do what we can as individuals and be our gay self.
I'm just going to upload myself. I'm going to upload myself to a hard drive and just put me somewhere. So next thing that I'd want to kind of jump to, since we're on the topic of, our own homophobic experiences, is that I think within our own community, people have a lot of different discrimination experiences, every day. One example is just on the apps, Grindr and Scruff. I think people experience, a lot of racism. There's fat phobia stuff. There's a lot of different pieces of the community, I think, that are kind of at war on those apps. I'll just ask you, what is your opinion on preferences? Is it okay to have those and such?
I think in the grand scheme of things, it's okay to have preferences. Like, for example, I prefer someone with a beard, prefer someone that's hairy on the chest, right? These kind of physical things that don't really have much weight. They don't really mean much. But when we talk about apps, how many times have you heard no fat, no femme?
Oh, often.
Too many times, right? And I think the greater question is to kind of ask, what is not okay to prefer? And I think us here unanimously agree that preferring a race is completely unacceptable. And I was reading articles about it today and was continuing to get triggered by it because people are trying to justify that it's okay to not prefer someone that's not white. I was recently watching this video that was talking about Tyler Oakley, a YouTube personality, and the downfall of Tyler Oakley. And it was supposedly because he tweeted about if you prefer to not, approach anyone or have sex with someone because of the color of their skin, that you're racist. And people disagreed with him. And I'm like, how? How do you think that's okay?
And I will say, just knowing his audience, it is a lot of white males who probably have that thought of this is fine if I only prefer them. I'm a Fire Island gay. No offense, Fire Island gays, but
now that you say that,
yeah, and that's just me guessing. I have no evidence to back that up besides just knowing some of his fans. It's hard because you're right. On the apps, I see it, and there's a lot of this, I think people creating almost a body dysmorphia or a hatred of their own skin tone or color because of how other gay men are treating them, or bi men. Anyone who's on the apps are just treating each other terribly. I already hate as is that they have a body type section. What kind of body type are you? And they get very detailed about it, and it's
Yeah, we've kind of talked about it. It's cool that we kind of have these things that we can align with and kind of find a community within it, but it also creates that opportunity for segregation or to quickly dismiss a group of people. And I haven't been on the apps in a while. And so I initially thought to myself, like, I even remember there being a filter for race to where you could filter out what races you wanted to see on your grid. And I was like, that's not okay. And I discovered through research, thankfully, instead of coming in here, slamming these apps, Grinder is a big one when it comes to stuff like this. And Scruff both removed the ability to filter by race on their apps in June of 2020. So thankfully that's not a thing anymore. And if it was a thing, boy, I was going to be coming in hot.
Took him a while.
Mm-hmm.
Took him a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that same kind of filter can lead to not just discrimination, but also the objectification of different races, saying, no other color is only this color. And it's like, well, so you're sexualizing, you're fetishizing this one race of people that, it's no different than a different line of discrimination. It's just a different way of going about it, but it's still what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where I've seen, like, we'll keep it a little PG-13 of, like, BBC only, or, like, Asian guys to the front. And it's like, sure, you may try and say that this is the opposite, but no, you're just objectifying a race now, or fetishizing a group of people.
Yeah.
Did I say that word right? Did I do it?
I think so. And I have friends who have experienced that before, and they've said that it's kind of gross. It grosses them out, and they said, you're looking at me just as like an object, almost as just a pleasure for you for that moment. And I feel like sometimes those apps, those stats, numbers, they really turn a person into just a picture on a screen and no longer a person in real life.
Yeah, I think the question becomes, what do you really expect from an app that's probably 90% a hookup app? Like, no one's really looking for personality when it comes to some of those things. So I feel like the apps themselves can only do so much, and thankfully, like I mentioned, you at least can't filter by race at this point.
Yeah, I still think there's people out there who are, looking at those apps in a very specific way. I mean, I see it. I am on the apps, single forever. Hey, call me. And it's sad, but I still see it. And I'm not going to, of course, attack everyone because I just don't have I don't have the mental energy or health to go after everyone for their views. I just block and move on.
Yeah. It sucks because, like, I kind of feel helpless or, like, small because I'm only one person and I can only do and say so much. Like, how do we get an entire community to change their perspective on this? Because there's so many white dudes that just think it's completely okay. I'm just that white guy that thinks it's okay. Help.
Yeah, no, we've had some issues in our city before, in Kansas City, where there have been groups left out of interactions, groups not part of, pride things, for example. We've talked about it before, but POC is part of one of our new pride committees that have gone up, and they're actually giving input and properly ensuring that we have inclusion for everybody. And that's really refreshing compared to our previous committees that were not as inclusive. So it's changing. I think it comes in time. It's taking so long, though. That's all.
Yeah, I think a big part or a big way that we can do almost immediate change is to look at who's in these committees when it comes to pride celebrations or whatever it may be. Like, even look at pride events or pride nights at sporting events. Like, who's in charge of these things? Are they focusing on consumerism, or are they focusing on inclusion? And I don't have the article up, but I read one similar of what you said, of like, there was one black lesbian woman that was in this committee, and they ignored every idea that she had and basically implied that they're trying to keep people like her away because they're going to thug up pride. And it's like, you really thought that was okay to say, but it's because they're behind this veil of this community, or this committee, sorry, that's not going to say anything because they all think the same thing. We need to get more representation in these committees and actually have their voice be heard.
Yeah, it's like that phrase of white-splaining. These white privileged people sometimes feel the need to explain over a POC or someone else with a different idea, and it's something that we still see today. It's not like a new thing. It's not going away too quickly, but I'm hoping with the future and the youth being more diverse, hopefully they'll get involved and take over. Like, go off.
I feel like this is a topic, or just like a grand overall topic of like so many things that we can break down and talk specifically over. And I certainly hope that's something that we can continue to do with this podcast, and something that we've talked about before, and hopefully we can do it, is to have other people show up on this podcast and share their opinions. Because I've said it before, like, we're just two gay dudes that have our own experiences, and we want to hear other people's experiences and their inputs on these situations, because they may be probably more informed than we are. So
yeah, our experience, our perspective is just limited to what we've gone through, our trauma. And I think it's important to hear from people who have experienced some of these traumas that we talk about that we haven't experienced ourselves. And I hope in our next season we can bring people on to talk about it and give their experience, and create that awareness for people that may not have the same exposure.
Right. You said it. We haven't said it yet. But you said
I let it out.
Next season. Technically, this episode is going to be the end of season 1. It's only been 6 episodes. I've been telling Gavin, let's just consider it a preseason. Like, this is just our little warm up, get a little feel for what people think and how we feel about it. I just think it's appropriate time for me, because I have a lot going on personally. I have a lot of changes in my life. Mentioned earlier about a job potential, rugby starting back up, school is starting back up for me. Like, there's so much going on. So being able to focus on those things are incredibly important. So I definitely need to step back a little bit.
Yeah, and we'll have some more stories to come back to these next couple months for me with traveling and pride stuff and more go-go stuff. And you have your personal rugby stuff and other things going on. We're going to have some stories to bring back and talk about.
Yeah, I think a break is actually really good at this time, because I think it gives us that opportunity to refresh and come back with even more stories and topics to discuss, and kind of give us time to refine the podcast. Like, there's so many things about this podcast that are great, but there's also things where I'm like, ugh, my audio's different this time, or ugh, I feel so unoriginal.
Tech problems.
Or like we uploaded a podcast and it was live for 3 days and half the audio wasn't working. Like, just stuff. We're getting there. So I think to be able to step back and kind of clean it up a little bit will be really good for us.
Agreed.
Well, with that said, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Is that all we got?
I guess so. Just one more big thank you to everyone for taking time out of their day for listening, and hopefully enjoying all the content we've produced. A lot of this was personal stories and the stuff we wanted to bring out. And if you have any ideas or comments, or maybe you want to be on this podcast, feel free to contact us on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you find us. Reach out to us, let us know, and we'd love to hear from you. And we really appreciate you coming out here and just giving us a chance.
Yeah. Like you said, check us out on social media if you haven't already, at Dreaded30s. And that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for checking us out this season, and dealing with the good and the bad of this, and just the fact that people have listened to this, which has been a passion project of mine, is like so fulfilling. So I appreciate all of you for doing that. And Gavin, let's not get too lovey, but thank you for doing this.
Of course. Love you, Justin.
So much fun. Oh, I love you too. Okay, enough cuteness. Y'all have a good one.
Bye.
See ya.